Hey everybody, James from Type here, and today we're talking about the most successful pairings. So let's get into it. So let's really try to examine what the most successful pairings are. Unfortunately, we do have kind of a lack of research in this topic because we just don't have very reliable ways of testing, and we don't have a lot of experiments done on people who were tested accurately over long periods of time and so on. So it's extremely limited, the amount of research we have. So we're kind of going at it based on people's life experience, some basic logical assumptions, and stuff like that. So we don't truly know exactly which pairings are most successful, but we do have some kind of ways of guessing and observations that can kind of help us know which ones are and aren't. So the most compatible types in general are the golden pair pairings, the silver pair, the bronze pair, and the pedagogue. So that kind of makes sense, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pedagogue and bronze pair, though, kind of tied in different ways, and we can kind of talk about that later. And with all of these pairings, a lot of it comes down to subjectivity. It's your own nurture, it's their nurture, it's what place you're at, what time you're at when you meet them. You might find that silver pairs really work for you for different reasons, or some people might find that they really like pedagogues for their own developmental reasons, and some people might just like the golden pair, all of the compatibility they can get. So it really depends on a lot of different things. Location, like I said, focus, maturity, age. Are you older? Do you value different things? Are you younger? Do you like kind of being enabled and having easy relationships? It really depends on a lot for which is most kind of easy or successful, but in general it goes in this order on a very kind of widespread basis. So first, let's start with the golden pair. It's the most compatible with the functions, the temperament, and the interaction style combo. So it's got compatibility on pretty much all fronts in every way you can look at it. So it's the most compatible, number one, easiest relationship to make work in general, but we'll talk about some different things with regards to it. Highest success rate when people have options and time. So what I'm kind of meaning there is if people get to meet their golden pair and have a lot of time with a bunch of different people, and this is kind of biased from my experiences, but it's what I've experienced in life, seen other people do. It's what I've seen when I've watched a lot of crap reality TV and examined hundreds of different relationships. It's just kind of what happens often. It's kind of the one that people are drawn to. It has the magnetism of being the most compatible in every way. People are drawn to it. It's the number one most compatible one, and so people just get into them a lot and have a lot of success with these relationships. But one thing with the golden pair that can kind of struggle with all of the relationships, you'll see this struggle, is that it really needs equal maturity. It doesn't always function as well. If one person's older, more mature, the other person's younger, less mature, that can kind of make these relationships more difficult because the other one will see the other one as kind of being an immature version of who they're compatible with, and it will often bother them, and it can cause a lot of tension and stress that wouldn't necessarily be there. Now these types, because they're so compatible, can grow together, and that's one thing they have over a lot of the different pairings, is that they can really stick it out when there is that unequal maturity, and they can kind of find eventual equal maturity, or they can kind of grow together into a maturity that kind of equals each other. So even if they're both immature or both mature, as long as there's a close enough connection, it'll often grow, and it's definitely the one that's the most likely to work. If you're wanting to know what your golden pair is, we have a video on that, and I can make more videos in the future on golden pairs. But in general, the golden pair, definitely the easiest, the kind of quickest path to connection, quickest path to compatibility, and in general has a lot less problems than the other relationships. And then we have the silver pair, so number 2, right? Pretty good. Second most compatible for functions, temperament, interaction style. No commas there, just kind of letting it all flow. High success rate from everything I've seen and heard and talked about, but it can struggle with some communication issues because they aren't quite compatible. What is optimistic for one type is pessimistic for the other, and that's just because it goes hero to parent, child to inferior, or aspirational. And this kind of slight disconnect can definitely make problems. I mean, the truth is, even in the golden pair, there's lots of different problems that can come up. Relationships are just really hard to maintain on a really good level due to so many different factors. Like I said, time, age, location, maturity, circumstance, things outside of your control, mistakes, all this stuff. So there's lots of different reasons, and the silver pair definitely can suffer from this lack of communication. If you have two introverts together, one doesn't initiate everything the other one expects them to. Same with the other one, they're a little bit, closed off seeming. two extroverts, maybe they're just too out there. They're not, wanting to be at home as much. They're wanting to go out, and little kind of miscommunications can definitely affect these relationships. And like I said, if you guys are interested in me going to all of them, I could definitely do that in a kind of a deep examination of these pairings, and I could use examples from real life. And yeah, maturity is on both ends is important as well. Just like the golden pair, you could even make the argument that it's more important because it's a little bit of a more difficult relationship to have work. If both types are really mature, that will definitely help their relationship. But if both types are immature, it's harder for them to grow together. Unlike the golden pair, where maturity levels just kind of need to be equal-ish, and then it'll kind of work out and they can grow together. Silver pair, it's even more important that both sides are mature, because there is this kind of communication difficulty with all the functions being slightly ajar. So that kind of slight incompatibility can definitely make communication super important as well. Respect, trust, all these different little issues that aren't as important in a golden pair, even more important, because there is this slight miscommunication on the functions. So definitely a pairing that can work really well, really compatible. Kind of very similar to the golden pair in compatibility, but needs a lot of work with the communication to kind of make it work, and it can be a little bit more difficult long term. Then we have the bronze pairing. So this is sensor to intuitive, or vice versa. It's the third most compatible. The functional optimism is there, but they are in very different order, unlike the silver pair and golden pair. Less interaction style and temperament compatibility as well. We have like SJs to NJs and NPs to SPs, stuff like that. And it kind of may be tied with the pedagogue. You can make different arguments. You could even say the pedagogue is third. You could say it's fourth. Like I said, in many kind of realms, it's subjective to you, of course, if you're looking for a relationship. But from a very objective standpoint of which is technically the most successful, I just don't have the data to kind of back up any answer to say. It may be surprising. We may find that, a different relationship than I think is the most successful one long term over a massive sample size. We just don't really know. But with the very limited information we have, it's definitely up there. It's in the mix, like all of these different reasons, different kind of features, and based on your nurture, those can be more important or not. And it can be tied with that pedagogue as well, because while it does have the functional compatibility, it does lack some of that kind of camaraderie in that they can be quite different, right? You have very different temperaments. You have a very different interaction style than some people might be used to. And it can be very enabling because it promotes each other's subconsciouses. So if you guys don't really know what that means, I'll kind of try to make it kind of simple and explain it a little bit. Basically what it means is that your third and fourth function, which aren't your top two, but are the functions that kind of lead to your subconscious, it's what people aspire to, it's what people hope to be, those bottom functions are more compatible with the bronze pairing than the top two. So what it ends up having people do is instead of using their top two functions, they start kind of using their third and fourth more. But what this can lead to is a lot of pride because, and I haven't talked about it in this video, but the third and fourth functions are kind of a source of a kind of insecurity with the ego. It's what people often talk about when they talk about ego problems or, he has a fragile ego. It's about those third and fourth functions. So because they promote those third and fourth, it can lead to kind of a pride versus pride relationship where they're bolstering each other's egos and kind of enabling each other to be prideful. Now, on the flip side, could it eventually lead to humility over time? Absolutely. So it can kind of be a double-edged sword. It might lead to more prideful, enabling relationships, but if both people are very mature, it could make them more humble. It could have them bring out a side of themselves what they like, and over time, it can definitely be a very successful relationship. So the bronze pair is definitely up there. It can be really successful. It can be really common because there's a lot of sensors in the world, so intuitives can very easily match up with them. Lots of different reasons, maybe it just happens, it's just time and place, right circumstances. But this is definitely one that's very common, and it can work very well, but they can have some problems. And it might struggle long term because of that. You could say it struggles because of a lack of compatibility compared to the golden pair and silver pair. But in my opinion, it can struggle a little bit for some of those reasons I talked about, of that kind of focus on the third and fourth, and it might not balance well across all the sides of the mind. It might be too subconscious focused instead of developing each other's shadows as much, which could lead to some immaturity. But as I mentioned, depending on the maturity of the people in the relationship, that's a huge factor where they could actually end up making each other more mature, and that's kind of the deal for most of these relationships. And maturity is the hugest factor almost, because compatibility without factoring in nurture or maturity really comes down to golden pair, silver pair. But when you factor in maturity and life experience, a lot of this stuff can be very different. And people can make relationships work where they wouldn't otherwise because of that maturity. So don't get too worried. Don't think, oh, I have to be with golden pair, otherwise I have no shot of making it work. It's definitely not true. It's just the easiest from a functional compatibility standpoint. Then we have that pedagogue pair, which is kind of, I don't know if you guys know too much about it, but it means they have fully compatible perceiving functions, but incompatible judging functions, which means they teach each other how to kind of make decisions better and judge the world differently and see the world differently, but they're still compatible with their relationship compatibility. So it's kind of a mix of compatibility and growth, which is kind of perfect because the compatibility is 100% lined up for the perceiving functions, and the growth aspect or the teaching aspect is really lined up for the judging. So it's kind of a perfect storm there. And that kind of relationship functions, the NI, the NE, the SI, the SE. If you guys want to know more about why those are the relationship functions, I can talk about that later as well. But those functions are really important for relationships. While they're not the emotional compatibility, they are the physical, sexual compatibility, and those aspects are really important when you're looking at like a pairing that has to do with that kind of physical compatibility. And it can really promote growth. It can kind of promote that stability that comes from the compatibility. It can promote a lot of really good things, maturity. They can kind of help each other become better. It's a lot of really great stuff. One of the big differences between the pedagogue and the golden is that the golden pair works really well for people even if they're both immature, whereas the pedagogue, just kind of like the silver and some of these little bit less compatible pairings, it really helps if both partners are focused on growth and humility and maturity, and they're kind of focused that way. If you have two really immature people in a pedagogue, it has a way less success rate, in my opinion, than maybe the golden pair, silver pair, bronze pair ones, because you kind of need that nurtural aspect to really favor growth, favor humility, honesty, using your shadow, using your subconscious in different ways, and kind of having a better development over the four sides of your mind. So it's maybe a higher bar, but you can make the argument that it has a higher kind of potential, because when they do work together, they can kind of grow each other's in a way that no other relationship can. So they can really expand on each other's maturity and consciousness and love together, but they're much harder than those other pairings if people are not mature in those situations. So it really depends on their maturity of the different people in these relationships. Pedagogue, really good one, up there with that bronze pair, but like I said, kind of depends on your nurture, depends on your kind of circumstances that you meet these people, how old they are, how mature they are, all these different things. So I'd love to hear in the comments what you guys think are the most compatible pairings for you, what you find you connect with more. Do you connect more with maybe the bronze pair? Is that something that your focus kind of leads you to? Or do you guys really like the pedagogue maybe, or just the kind of natural ease of the golden? Let me know down below, and let me kind of know which types you're in relationships with. And if you want to hear more on this topic, then let me know as well. And have a great day.